Hello everyone, this is From Zero to Lead. This is basically all of the lessons learned from my years in the game industry, but with some focus on leadership. So, hi everyone, I am Arnbjörnsson. I am an Unreal Engine evangelist at Epic Games. I also do the Games Helsinki conference. I'm the main organizer there. I am a game programmer by trade. I am Icelandic, but I've been living here in Finland for a bit over 10 years now. I've been, this is my 15th year in game dev, which sounds better than saying I'm almost 15 years in game dev. 14 plus, yeah, 15th, I like that. And I've had over 5 years of leadership of smaller teams, bigger teams. And from that, I've learned a lot of lessons, and I would like to share some of the most important ones now with you. I think we should just dive straight in. The first category is community. And I actually like this first lesson because it's adjust the mic. So basically, don't be past me. This happened the first time a public speaking event that I was part of was in college for me. And I tried to, keep a good posture, come in and like, okay, I'm super nervous. Hello, everyone. I'm Ari. And the thing is, the mic was quite low compared to me. And as I was talking, someone in front said, Ari, hey, they can't hear you. Can you speak into the mic? And I'm like, yeah, okay. So I'm doing this awkward where I bent over and talking to the mic, and it just looks absolutely horrible. And I do that for the entire time just so people can hear me. I thought this whole podium and the mic was like some sacred thing that you couldn't touch. But the thing is, it's your stage. Like, you can do whatever you want with it. You come down, you adjust the mic. It's the first thing you do. You see how it works, screw it up. Make sure it's in your mouth because you're going to be talking sometimes for a really long time. So make sure it's all proper. And you can do a lot of other things if you're thirsty because we're talking a lot. Our voice is going to get tired. People will forgive you for drinking some water. Also, walk around. Like, it's a bit harder when you're doing remote presentations, but once COVID is over, we're back on stage. Like, it's a big stage. Take advantage of it. Some people even if you have a microphone, connect it, you can even go off the stage, interact with the audience, go wild. And also have pauses. I know when you're getting started talking to a crowd, it can feel a bit stressing and you feel like you always want to be speaking. And it's okay to just sometimes have a dramatic pause. They can be quite impactful. You can practice extroversion. So if we take me as an example, I used to be super introverted. I the first 20 years, I always had just one friend. I never had friends groups, didn't know the concept, didn't do parties or anything like that. Just video games and my one or two friends. And I finally decided at 20 years, something like that, I decided, you know what? I'm going to kind of dive into the deep pool. I'm going to take on the role of the entertainment coordinator for the Student Association of Computer Science Students. And it was a deep pool. So you can just imagine me, this nerd, trying to tell a bunch of students to go into the bus. My heart was, oh my God, it was the first time I was going to talk for this big of a crowd. Just please get into the bus. And but the thing is, turns out it was always a small crowd, 10, 15, 20 people, which became kind of manageable. And you get better at it, especially if you start small. So you can practice public speaking. It helps a lot if you kind of know the crowd also, because for me, it was students. It was always the same people. You know everyone. You're not that panicky. And it's interesting how people that we know a little bit or at least I don't mind speaking in front of people that know a little bit, versus like a full audience that I don't know anyone. So it's interesting. And the thing is, like, I'm not a different person. I'm still introvert. You're not reinventing yourself. You're just adding an extra skill. I'm still introverted, but now, like, for example, people are gonna meet me during all these public events. They're gonna say like, Ari, he's super introvert. The thing is, I'm not. I need to recharge my batteries a lot. Like sometimes I'll go like 2 weeks just at home, not meeting anyone except my fiance, and just playing video games, and I love it. So don't feel like this is something you have to like alter your mentality. It's just another skill to learn, and for leaders, I think it's a good skill to have, and I recommend it. I also recommending joining or creating a community. Hey, you're already here. Either you're one of the speakers or you're just here to, check out the presentations and learn more. Good job. More of that. That's what I love about it. You're sharing knowledge, you're learning. It's, everyone's benefiting from it. So I definitely recommend, do it. And also, when you're speaking, sharing knowledge, or just, joining in any capacity, I mean, you are growing the local industry, and especially here in Helsinki or even in Finland in general, it is your talent pool after all. So help grow it. Let people help also. This is something I learned when I was doing Games Helsinki, the conference, is that I got these speakers, I got, friends of mine helping me check in people and with all the practicalities, and asking people to speak at like my conference. It felt like I was asking them to do me a favor, and I couldn't offer anything in return except like, oh, you get a ticket to the conference. And the thing is, what I had to learn afterwards was that people really, really liked helping, and they want to help. And after the conference, people came up to me and said like, Ari, if you do it again, I also want to help. And I don't know, maybe no one else has this issue, but for me, it was hard to ask for help because I thought I was inconveniencing people. You're not. Many of them want to help. So let them. Let's now go into communication. And this is a very important slide. This is probably the most important slide out of the whole deck, in my opinion. And that is you need to learn how to give and get better feedback. And sorry if I say you need to, but for example, this talk, maximizing artistic critique, improving communication for everyone involved in critical feedback. This is a DDC talk that is free on YouTube. And I watch it pretty much, I think I watch it at least once a year, at least. And that's just because I love it so much. It's just got these amazing takeaways. And it teaches you, to give better feedback. It teaches you what is good and bad feedback, but also something that I hadn't really considered before. It teaches you to get better feedback also. So if someone gives you bad feedback, it kind of gives you the skills to turn that maybe into a good feedback, either by asking them more questions or just by, trying to see between the lines. Oh, framing. I really like this slide. So there's usually many ways of framing a sentence. And my favorite example of this is actually from a game. For example, World of Warcraft. I love this story. So what happens is World of Warcraft was in beta, right? And they needed some way to make it so that casual players could feel like they're actually making a difference, like they're actually getting something done. And the hardcore players, the ones who are playing all the time, they needed some way of slowing them down a bit so they don't, rush through all the content and like finish the game. So they introduced this mechanic that was like this tiredness. The longer you play, the more tired you get. And once you become tired, and then you get less experience, like half, and then you become exhausted once you played like quite a lot. And then you're only getting like, I don't know, it was like half or like 1/4 of the experience normal users would get. And people hated it. They were like, we're being punished. Why are we being punished for liking and playing the game? So what Blizzard did was instead was that when they released the game, they completely reframed it. Now it was when you get into the game after a good night's rest of like, I can't remember how many hours it was, your character would become well rested, and you would have a 200% experience bonus for a couple of hours. And then after those 2 hours are done, you would just become normal, 100% experience. And now people could, they could come back to the game and say like, oh, I have this well-rested boost. I should try to do the missions that give you the most experience. And they felt like it was a bonus instead. And people started liking this more. And I think it's a really good example of just how, because the numbers were all the same underneath. Everything worked identically, but not just because they framed it differently. Now people were loving it. I really like this example. I also really like how Supercell do their free-to-play games. I know I'm doing game examples when you should be using this in real conversations, but these are so good examples because we're all making games. We can also use it in our games. I don't like it when I'm playing a game and I want to play it more and they punish me, for example, by having an energy mechanic and they say, you can't play anymore. And it really frustrates me. And I've uninstalled a few free-to-play games because of it. But how Supercell does it, for example, with Clash Royale, is that they have these, treasure chests, and you have 3 slots. So you get a treasure chest, it goes in this slot, and takes, for example, a day to unlock. So once you got all 3, you can keep playing, but you can't, the treasure chests you get will just get discarded. So they're not stopping you from playing. They're just saying, you're not getting as many bonuses. It's just framing, even game mechanics wise. Basically what I'm saying is there's usually 2 ways of saying the same thing. And even if it's not just for games, it also just applies in real life. So try to do the one that is more positive, more constructive, and not the one that actually makes people angry. Speaking about making people angry, knee-jerk reactions. I must say, this is by the way recent, when I kind of managed to catch my feelings before I actually reacting and kind of analyze them, it felt like a new superpower. Because you can just catch them and you can just go wait, why am I feeling this? Why am I feeling so defensive? What is this knee-jerk reaction? And it just allows me to kind of calmly respond to things without it turning into an argument suddenly. And also by doing this, I can kind of anticipate, because I know when I'm reacting like this, I can kind of anticipate when others will react to it. So now when I'm about to say something, maybe I can frame it differently, which won't induce this knee-jerk defensive reaction. It will just be a conversation. And I know that there's probably some people that work with me going oh, come on, Ari, you don't do it. Yes, I don't. This is recent. We're all learning constantly. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I still don't do it all the time. And yes, some people are probably going to say, Ari, you're just full of it. Also, it's one of those examples of do as I say, not as I do. I'm trying to be better. I'm sorry. Try to be better with me. And kind of on that note, the principle of charity. Usually there are many ways to understand how someone means what they say. And the principle of charity basically means assume that the speaker means well. So there are, we all know that one person that, when you say something, they construct this worst way of taking that sentence. And you're no, you're putting feelings and intentions in my mouth. I didn't mean any of them. Usually just try to, give them the benefit of the doubt. They probably meant the nicest way you can take it. Not always, but even if they don't, if you just think they do, it's just better on your mentality. And when I was at Housemark, they have, not had, but while I was there, I really liked this, the Prime Directive. And this is from Scrum and Agile. It's by Norm Kurth, from the book Project Retrospectives, a Handbook for Team Review. And that is the Prime Directive. I'm just going to read this out. Regardless of what we discover, we understand and truly believe that everyone did the best job they could, given what they knew at the time, their skills and abilities, the resources available, and the situation at hand. And if you just do this, it's also very freeing for your soul, because if you see something like, I've seen coders, they see bad code and they're like, oh, this is an idiot, or oh, why are they writing so bad code? Are they trying to mess me up? But usually it's like, you know what? They probably did the best they could at the time. So I really like that. On to practical development. Do what you do well. And I'm just gonna go with one of my favorite examples, and that is Netflix. So Netflix, Netflix, when they were done with the whole DVD thing and taking on streaming, they had their own backend infrastructure. So they were kind of like taking on the responsibilities of an internet company, basically. And they were doing that while also trying to work on the Netflix experience. And they basically realized, like, hey, it doesn't matter if you have all the money in the world. There's still very finite resources of like talent. So we have to like focus on core business. What is our core business? Is it getting Netflix to everyone, which anyone can do, or is it the Netflix experience? So what they did is that they took all of their backend, or most of the backend infrastructure, and just put it on AWS from Amazon, because Amazon was someone who was doing it cheaper and better. They specialized in it, and then they could do that and focus all of their core employees on Netflix, the experience, what we all know when we turn on the TV and we get doo-doom, that's the Netflix team. And another good example is like, for example, Spotify. They used to be like music streaming. It was all about the streaming. Then they realized, you know what, Google Cloud does the actual backend better than us, and we can focus on the experience. And as a last example, when I joined Housemarque, they had just switched to Unreal Engine, because they had learned that it always took a bit of time to get started with the development tools until the content team could actually start using them. And that was just time wasted. So when they switched to Unreal Engine, suddenly now when they make a new project, everyone can just, hit the ground running. And yeah, just try to figure out what is your core business. Focus on that. Do what you do well. Don't try to do things. Don't reinvent the wheel, I love this slide. I love talking about this. Luxury problems. What are luxury problems? So you're going to have them. And I would suggest you don't try to fix all your luxury problems in advance. So as an example of a really abstract one, oh no, my wallet is too small for all this money that's coming in. What am I supposed to do? If someone sees your luxury problem and they say, I wish I had your problem, it's a luxury problem. So a good example of that is, for example, you are making a mobile game. I think this applies mostly to free-to-play or service games. Let's say service games. Don't try to anticipate every single problem that might happen and fix it before you can prove your concept and get to market. So try to do that first. Try to prove the concept, get to market first. Because I once was a part of a company where we did everything perfectly and the game was ready to scale indefinitely. But the thing is, when we put it out, it just didn't perform well. The thing is, we could have probably made it in like almost half the time if we had just tried to get it on the market first and seen if it even works. So try that. This is, I hope you're not insulted, but write things down. So I noticed my productivity started increasing quite well when I knew always what was on my work stack. So every time there was something I needed to do, I would just write it down into this. I had there's this application in Windows called Windows Notes or Post-its or something like that. It's like Post-its on your desktop. And I would just always put what I was working on right there. And then I would it was a stack, so I would arrange it by importance. And just having that immediately, I always knew what to prioritize. And it's so much different than when you don't have it and everything's just chaos and you're forgetting things and you're like, should I be working on something more important? Most of you maybe already do this and you're just like, you're only figuring this out now. But still, if you don't do this, do it. Also, write down lessons learned. most of the things I'm telling you now are from my notes app on my phone, because a few years ago, I already knew that I wanted to make this presentation. So I started writing down every time I would talk to someone and tell them a lesson learned. I was like, wait, actually, let me write that down. I want to have this in a presentation maybe someday. And this applies to everything, not just, something you might potentially put in a presentation. It might be something that just for daily lives, or like I do it a lot with my programming lessons learned. I actually put them all on my website, Games. You can go there and see all my lessons learned with Unreal Engine. And this, oh my God, this improved my life. Writing down a going abroad items list. This doesn't have anything to do with work. I guess it kind of does, when you're going to a conference, whatever. I have this list of things that I should make sure I'm bringing with me when I'm going abroad. It includes everything: toothbrush, charger, passport, wallet, yada, yada. Even like things you wouldn't normally forget, I write them down. And now whenever I'm going abroad, I go over this list to make sure I'm taking everything that I want to take from it. And then I don't have to think about it anymore. And then I'm just like, I can just leave, go to another country now for 2 weeks or something. And you know the feeling you usually have when you go abroad? You're like, do I have everything? You don't have to have it anymore. You're just like, well, I checked the list, so I have everything. And if you ever do forget anything, you can just add it to the list. This is, okay. Programmers will create problems to solve. And it's okay. It's okay. I can say this. I'm a programmer. It's okay. I can say this. The thing is, programmers, we solve problems. That's the thing. Like, we love a challenge. Programming is like solving a puzzle all the time. And honestly, if there are no problems, we will just create them. And it's like, sure, not all of us, of course, but like the senior they are, the more likely they are to do it, because the more likely they are to like a challenge. And honestly, code golfing has no place in production code. Code golfing is when programmers will just decide to try their best to make code clever at the expense of readability. Often. Sometimes it's good code, but most often it's not. So to not have that happen, try to, I don't know, keep your seniors challenged. I guess you could also just keep them checked. Just tell them like, hey, I know what you're working on isn't that challenging, but just try to do your work. And the thing is, like, if they feel like anyone else could be doing it and their mind isn't flexed, they might be more open to other companies that do offer that challenge. So don't be surprised if they just decide to get the challenge elsewhere. So yeah, just, I don't know. So random little practical development tip. Oh, crunch. Oh boy. You cannot have a talk about leadership without talking about crunch, can you? Okay. Why do people crunch in the first place? Okay, so, but yeah, seriously, why do people crunch? Because they were asked to, I guess. That's the easiest answer. But, I mean, not often. There's also because they feel the need to. So if I think back about all the times I've done a crunch session, it's not like, yeah, it has been because someone asked me to, but most of the time it's been because I felt I needed to. So let's go into that. Why do people feel like they need to crunch? Probably to prove themselves. This can be for anyone new to the industry. They're like, oh my God, I'm finally making games. Oh, I feel like I need to prove myself. Or just they really, really like it. It's like, oh my God, I'm finally doing what I love. I just want to work more work. Oh, I don't want to go home. A common one is that they're stakeholders. That can be either like they started an indie company and everyone's wearing all these hats and they they literally have stake in the company. So if the company doesn't make it, then they're out of a job. Or even just because people feel like they have put a part of themselves into the game, like, oh, this embodies me. That happens a lot also. A lot of time, though, it is just because of miscoped work. Production and management will say, like, hey, we need to do all of these, and we need to do it before this time. But I think what I've seen And why I've done this before, it's because there's this like inherent pressure to do it from others because the others are doing it. And this is crunch culture. Like you might not think you have crunch culture, but if you have some people doing overtime, especially in leadership positions, then you are creating a crunch culture. So they should be role models and not do it. So crunch, like this is kind of aimed at the ones who are crunching. I'll have some tips for the leadership about like also how to stop crunch. So don't crunch, even if you want to. That's my advice. Sometimes if it's because of enthusiasm, like, oh my God, I'm having so much fun, or just like, if I don't finish this, I have to finish this now because I'm on a roll, I would say just stop. It's okay. Treasure the feeling of wanting to do more or like to finish your current task. It's actually, I know it's hard to rip yourself from the keyboard or mouse or whatever you're doing, but just take a pause, like enjoy life, take a shower, because even though you're not actively working on the problem, if it's, motivating enough, fun enough, or just taking space in your head, you're going to keep thinking about it, even though you're not actively doing it. It's in your subconscious. And it'll, like, your brain can be very creative when it's back there, when you're not focusing on it, when you're not seeing the forest for the trees. So you're taking a shower or you're trying to go to sleep and suddenly, bing, oh, I know I'm going to fix this now. So I would say treasure that feeling, because if you overwork yourself, if you get like mentally exhausted or burnout or something, exhaustion will take that feeling away from you. You're not going to have that anymore. So yeah, just keep it in the back of your head. You'll keep thinking about it anyways. Why we shouldn't do crunch, though, is because it's literally not worth it. There's been plenty of studies. There's been plenty of anecdotal observations from game companies. And overworked people, they make mistakes. I've been working with pressured people that are working late at night that were doing bad quality comments that caused extra work for the whole team the next morning. And it just didn't save us any time. And also, like, I've done, like, for example, a whole week of intense crunch, and then I've needed like 3 weeks of like rubbish recovery where you're still kind of working, but you need more rest. And I wasn't working as well during the recovery weeks as I was crunching, or like normally, I mean. So it just, with quality commits, average, stretched out, it wasn't worth it. It, like 8 hours a day, it is good. It is good. You're at your best. You're able to make the best work. And when you crunch, you get bad work when you're crunching, and you get bad work when you're resting. So try really to treasure your work and life balance, because crunch has always impacted my relationships. I've been more on the edge, explode for minor things. Like the worst argument me and my fiance ever was over nothing. And it was because we were both having a bad crunch, and we were both really on the edge with a really short fuse. Also, you know what? If you like overtime, fine, but not everyone's crunch is fun. You shouldn't expect it from others. If you like your overtime, that's a privilege, and you shouldn't expect it from others. So keep it to yourself. If anything, it's not something to be proud of these days. This is for both sides, both the workers and the leadership, because people, they don't have to crunch. Literally, the Finnish Working Hours Act forbids companies forcing it. If you want people to crunch, you need to get their express consent, and every time also, and you need to compensate accordingly. So for the first 2 hours, you need to give them normal salary plus 50%. For every hour after that, you need to give them double salary. So be wary of companies that are overriding the Working Hours Act in their contract. That's a big red flag. So usually what I would expect when I'm signing a hiring contract is that under the whole like working hours, overtime, yada yada, it would just say like you work 7.5 or 8 hours a day, and otherwise just refer to the Working Hours Act or the collective agreement or something like that. Because everything else that they add to that, that's a red flag. And also like just don't be that company that has a lot of like things there. It's really like it's a shit thing to do, honestly. So yes, on the compensation, so it does require overtime compensation, like I said before, but this also applies when you're using flex hours. So if people are working, for the first 2 hours, they'll get 1.5 hour flex hour back, and then after those first overtime hours, they'll get double the flex hours. But the thing is, an hour of overtime does not equal an hour of rest, so that's why we get more. And this is kind of important for the workers. If the overtime is on your own initiative, you don't get compensated for it at all. Like the company has no requirements to compensate you. So if you are going to do overtime, make sure that the company has asked you and that you have agreed to it, because only then do you get the overtime compensation. I've had people with a good intention say, don't crunch. Oh, Ari, it's 7 o'clock. Why are you still here? Go home. Ooh, that's my mic. Go home. And the thing is, it doesn't mean shit if you're not scoping correctly. Like, why do you think people are crunching in the first place? Instead, just schedule the work better. If I have too much work and I'm staying at work to try to do it, and then someone says like, Ari, you shouldn't be here, go home. That's just going to add to my stress. So instead, try to figure out why are they working overtime in the first place when we didn't ask them to, and just, rescope or adjust the deadline, something like that. For the workers, for the non-leads here, crunching, when you need to, when the project suddenly just needs crunching, it's not your fault. The thing is, us leads and all the decision makers, we can force a fixed scope or we can force a fixed deadline, but we can't do both. You can try, but it's just not going to work. Something's going to break somewhere. So you can have a fixed scope. We want all these features, and then it will be done when people actually finish them. Or you can say, we want to be done by then, but then you have to be very agile on, you have to be very lenient on the scope itself. And if they try to do both, that's managers making a mistake, not the team. So the team shouldn't be punished with crunching. The management should instead either allow leniency on the scope or the deadline. And also, just no game is worth your health. I saw this comment somewhere and it just resonated so well, because yes, people that are burning out, it's not just do you know what burnout means? People leave the industry because they just can't work in games anymore. People get anxieties and I had panic attacks for over half a year. I don't think my name in any game's credits is worth potentially losing my health over it. You might have recovered better in your 20s, like I did when I had my panic attack. It recovered in a few months, and I'm like, back to normal. But, once you're at over 30, over 40, it becomes kind of a boiling frog thing where you don't realize it's happening to you until you burn out, and then it's too late already. And panic attacks really suck. I mentioned them before, but the thing is, the first time I had my panic attack, it was during intense crunch, and I was trying to recover by just playing a video game, Counter-Strike. And I was the last one in my team, and it was a lot of added pressure, and suddenly I noticed my heart rate is as if I had just run up a flight of stairs. My heart rate is beating really, heart beating really hard. And I noticed I'm starting now to breathe I'm not getting enough oxygen. So I start breathing harder. It's I'm not getting enough air. What's happening? And you start to think Like that, because the anxiety then starts flaring up, and now you're just like panicking, like, oh my god, my heart is beating out of my chest. Am I dying? I'm dying, aren't I? I'm dying, and it actually feels like you're dying, especially the first time you have it. And I really hate it when shows and movies make a light of panic attacks, like, he's having a panic attack. Look at the brown paper bag. It's just, it's not funny. It's absolutely horrible. And yeah, I don't recommend working so hard that you'll give yourself a condition like that. They suck. But one good thing that happened to me, that I got it so early on, was that I got a little bit sensitive to anxiety after that. I recovered now mostly. But I really needed to rethink how I respond to external pressure so I wouldn't get another panic attack. And I basically, this embodies quite well what I thought. And this is from Douglas Adams, and he says, I love deadlines. I like the whooshing sound they make as they fly by. Like, that's just how you have to think of things. Like, what is a deadline? It's a manager coming like, by Monday. And that's not a deadline. And everyone needs to like break their backs over it. And, oftentimes it's just someone thought, oh, that's a good date. And we can make all of this before that, right? And do you know what happens if you miss a deadline? I can't remember. I've missed a lot of deadlines. I tell a lot of juniors, like, I've missed more deadlines than the deadlines you've had. And just, we're agile. We're an agile industry. Don't treat deadlines like, we've been seeing it, especially now during COVID. Companies have been, delaying their games, and the users are very understanding. If you're an indie company and you're just running out of runway, I don't have much of advice there. Try rescoping, do the things I've been recommending so far. But okay, let's go on to hiring. Seniors and leads. I get this question a lot. Ari, we need to hire a senior. Ari, we need to hire a lead. Where do we get them? I have an answer for you. We're out. That's it. We have a finite amount of them, and it's over. They're all employed. They're all somewhere, and they're very happy. Few of them are like moving between companies, but usually they get snapped up pretty quickly. We're just hiring them faster than we can grow or attract them here to the country. That's the fact. I hear sometimes of studios that are like, hey, we're a new startup. We're only made of seniors and we want to only hire more seniors. And I feel like that's kind of greedy. It's just like, we're taking from the pot that is the talent pool, but we're not really contributing. So like, how are you contributing? And I mean, you can, of course, grow them yourself. This is what I recommend. Like, there's a lot of people coming straight out of school and just like waiting for an opportunity to be able to prove themselves. We hired a lot of them we hired a few of them for Housemarque, and they really proved themselves. Some of the best workers I've ever worked with came straight from school at Housemarque. You know who you are. But of course, I understand, Ari, we still need some seniors. They need to be able to mentor the juniors. Okay, well, you can do what everyone else does in Finland, is you can just headhunt from other companies. Remember those programmers I talked about? They're like wanting a challenge? Well, there you go. Find them. A lot of cold calling and emailing on LinkedIn. It's not the best one. It can be annoying for them, but it works. I mean, almost all the jobs I've taken have been just opportunities while I was happy somewhere else. And I was like, oh, the grass looks a little greener over there. Of course, you can attract from abroad also. It's like, Finland, we're like, hey, we have saunas and trees and lakes. It's hard when they're everywhere else in Europe because every other European country has something like for them too. But of course, we can hire remotely. Like COVID has shown us, we can hire remotely. You can live wherever you live and come work with us. People used to be like, no, they have to come here. They have to come here and work for us. They have to be on the premise with us. Like COVID has shown us, no, you don't. We all went out of the studios and everything still works. You might not prefer it, but it works. And even though we all go back to the office, you're going to see, not everyone needs to be in the office. Not everyone wants to be in the office. Try hiring from abroad, remotely, I mean. So yeah. And this is the last one. I don't think many people often consider this, but hire them from other industries, like other similar ones. Like, for example, when I was getting hired at Housemark, like I came from the mobile industry. They were looking for someone to lead their PlayStation 5 game. But the thing is, I had over a decade of game programming experience and leading. And it's like, this transfers quite well. And there's probably some adjacent industries also where you can do that same thing. Like, for example, the movie industry. We have in game industry, we have a lot of people also from the movie special effects industry, yada yada. Get creative. Sometimes you'll see job requirement ads like this, and this is it's very arbitrary. 3 years of Unreal Engine experience, 3 years of C++ experience, must have shipped at least one console title, and must have experience leading teams of 5+ people. If, when I was doing Housemark, these had been the requirements, I don't think I would have applied, because I literally don't fulfill any of them, 0. So don't be too strict on this. Like, even now, like I'm working at Epic Games, and that's only after 2 years and 10 months of Unreal Engine experience. I don't even have 3 that some other studios are saying we're looking for just a normal game programmer that needs to have at least 3 years of Unreal Engine experience. It's like, I'm pretty sure they would hire me now, but I don't even fulfill those minimum, requirements. So what I'm trying to say is, don't scare off candidates, because the too strict job postings can be off-putting, and people will self-filter themselves. I've noticed I self-filtered when a lot of headhunters reached out. There's like, hey, this might be good for you. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. They say they need 2 years of C++, and I only used it in uni, so no. Looking back at it, I'm pretty sure nowadays, if I had been hiring for that same position, I would have taken me. But I'm biased. I'm also. So instead, just generalize. Make it like, instead of, oh, we need this arbitrary amount of C++ experience, just go like, well, we want you to have strong C++ skills. Because even if I don't have them, I will say, well, I have a lot of C or C# and all these other languages that I can probably apply to C++. So I might even fit this already. So basically, just try to have also more nice to haves instead of must haves on the job posting. Probably most of you already know this, but in case you aren't doing this, team fit over talent anytime. Because I have really seen toxic people tear companies apart. And also, they're almost impossible to fire. It's really hard to like fire a single person in Finland. Experience, that can also be acquired. People can acquire skills. It's very hard for someone to just stop being toxic. And life is too short to work with assholes. So just try to hire for fit instead. I'm seeing this a lot in the industry. People are already doing it. And when you're hiring, try to bring the best out of a candidate that you're interviewing. Don't just drill them with hard pass or fail questions, because it is your responsibility to like see what is the candidate best at. So, go through the resume, find things that you can get them to elaborate on, and give them a chance to, do a deep dive so they can really shine at what they're good at. Don't just, have these questions like, oh, I learned this last week, and I think this is actually now such a for sure thing. I'm going to ask everyone now in an interview. Like, don't be that person. Don't act like something you just learned and now suddenly a minimum requirement to get into your company. I've had people do that. It's just not good. So yeah, try to guide them, like find where they're good at. Okay, let's talk about just leadership lessons. Luckily, I haven't seen this much, but there are some people like that really look up to these, famous leaders that shout and like really explode with anger. The thing is, losing your anger does not make you assertive or powerful looking. It makes you look weak, because anger, it's the easiest feeling to just let loose. It's so easy. Do you know how easy it is? It's so easy. Babies do it all the time. Babies are always angry. And guess what? I don't respect babies. It actually takes self-control to inhibit it, to digest it, and then calmly make your point. So these are the kind of people I respect. Don't let your anger fly off all the time. It's It's so easy. It garners no respect. Also, like as a leader, don't freak people out. Now your words they're very powerful. So when you say to someone, "Hey, can you like come quickly to my office? Hey, let's have a quick one-on-one," like completely unprompted for it. That's, oh my god, oh, it's horrible. Don't do that. Don't do it, because we're leads. We can be the bearers of bad news. We can be like, oh, someone complained about you and you're whatever. So just give a little topic heads up every time you're impromptu asking someone to a meeting. It's a small thing for you, but it's a big thing for people you're like potentially freaking out. Now, as a leader, you have an added responsibility. You have clout, even if you don't feel you do. And this is actually important, because when I started having clout, I didn't feel like I had clout. So I didn't act like I did. And I probably spoke to some people in a way where I should have done it differently. So right now, you don't have the luxury of inappropriate behavior anymore. And I don't mean like actual inappropriate. I mean like when you're jesting, like, oh, it's just a little offensive humor. It's fine. Like, no, you don't have the luxury of your racy little jokes anymore. Now everything you say has weight to it. And this is not just for leads. This is for like anyone who has clout in the industry. Like you participate in a lot of events, you speak a lot, or you're just a very visible person. Like you stream, like anything that makes you people of potential influence, have clout. And you have a lot more responsibility now. And you have to wield it properly. And you have to be aware of it. It's so important. You have to be aware of it. And now, as a person with clout, you have an added responsibility regarding harassment in the industry. So you should call out harassment. You should condemn it. Also, like if someone has been like publicly outcried as a known harasser, it does not look good if you associate with them in public. It seems like you're approving it. So you have to be aware of these things now. Sorry. Also, trust your employees. You hired them as experts. You need to trust them. If you hire someone to do something that they're really, really, really good at, let them do it. Of course, you're a lead. You can dictate a bit and like guide them and lead them. But usually, they are better than you at a very specific thing. So you should surround yourself with that kind of people that are better than you at eventually everything combined. And then you just kind of lead the vision roughly, and then let them do it. Let them do the rest. They can. They're experts. And hey, learn to lead. You're here. Great. I screenshotted this tweet because it says this so well. I'm just going to read it out. If you are a lead in any capacity, your primary job is no longer to be the best coder in the room, or artist, or designer, or anything. Your job is to invest in learning the skills you need to effectively communicate and grow those you lead. Your words have the potential to sit with people for years. Act accordingly. I don't even know what to add to this. This is like already so good because, as a lead, like it doesn't mean you're at the top anymore. This is a new bottom once you become a lead. Like now suddenly there's a new world of things that you need to know, like all these soft skills. And when I started being a lead, I had none of these. Like I told you, I used to be a super introverted nerd. So luckily the companies I've been working at have been helping me grow as a lead. They've been like sending me to like these leadership training websites and yada yada. And I've also been doing a lot of initiative myself to learn to be a better lead. And I recommend you do that also. Actually, I don't just recommend it, I mandate it. And yes, your words are very powerful now. So we might just not realize how much our rants and advice can affect people. Even like a presentation like this, you like most of us, or most of us speakers here at this leadership summit, we've maybe done this before. We do this quite a bit. And do you realize like how many people might have just really taken your words to heart? But this is not just the not just the positive words, like also your negative words. Like the shit you says really can stick with people. And they might have done it before, even before you were a leader, but now it like double applies. The thing is, people will remember what you say. And your words can really like destroy people and stick with them. But let's not focus on the positives, on the negatives, because the positives are like your words can inspire whole teams. I've had people reach out to me saying like, oh my God, Ari, like, thank you. Because of your words, I had the confidence to apply and I actually got a job at this amazing company, like with this amazing publisher. And I was like, you know, that's absolutely amazing. Oh my God, I feel so amazing that I inspired someone like that. That's what your words can do now. And I think that's a good note to end this presentation on, inspiration. I hope my words managed to inspire you. And I want to thank you for sitting through my entire rant. I know watching a video is not the same as, being with the people in person in a hall. I hope this whole pandemic situation will be over soon. And of course, you can reach out to me on Twitter and LinkedIn. Like my Twitter DMs are open. So you can just send me a message there. And also that's my email address right there. And thank you. And if you're watching this live at the Leadership Summit, there will actually maybe be some time for questions. I've used 57 minutes, so let's see if we can squeeze some questions in. Let's do it now.
And we're back to the studio. Welcome, Ari.
Thank you.
So good to have you here in person again. Thanks for the lovely presentation. That was so much information. So, if you got even 1/3 of that, that was already brilliant. I've got some questions here coming in, but let me just start off with my own. How did you become a lead? Or more like, when did you start to identify yourself or think of yourself as a lead? How did that happen?
It started really gradually, I'll be honest. And it started by being in a small team where you don't have the leadership title, but you're giving like the acting lead role. And this actually comes a bit back to the slide where I say even you've been giving a leadership responsibility, and even though you don't have the title, even though you don't feel like a lead, other people are still perceiving you as a lead.
Right.
So you just have to start acting like it.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to start acting like it. So I actually became a lead before I actually felt like a lead.
Yeah.
And I would imagine this happens to a lot of people. So it was gradual.
Makes sense. What do you think gave you the skills or the confidence to sort of rise up to the situation, or was it out of necessity?
It was kind of out of necessity. I've often been made the lead because there was just, a big gaping hole where it just needed someone with the experience, which I had, but they also needed someone with leadership skills, which I was lacking, but working on.
Right.
And in the beginning, I didn't that much actively work on it because, again, I didn't feel like it. And then once it became more of a, hey, here's the title, I knew okay, now that I'm actually being called a lead, I have to start learning how to act like one.
Yeah.
And usually the companies have been very accommodating. They're like, hey, here are some online leadership courses, and yada, yada. They've been very accommodating with me effing up, not being the best leader. And they're like, well, we're a small team, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But if someone is, I don't have advice for anyone just going into a big team and suddenly becoming a lead. Because when I went into my biggest team, Housemark, I already had 5-ish years of smaller leadership experience, which I could then just ramp up. I was like, okay, now we're really doing this.
Yeah.
And Housemark had these amazing courses they would tell us towards Academy of Brain. I don't want to misremember it, so let's leave it out or something. No, and they do a lot of leadership training there online, so people can kind of self-learn, but there is a lot of self-learning required.
Yeah. Yes.
So no one is gonna just sit you down into a classroom and say now you're gonna be a lead. You really have to have the drive yourself, and if you don't have it, you kind of have to grow it.
Right, but then if you show the drive, then in some companies, in this case Housemark, then they're able to support you and give you the resources and learning. And
definitely,
it's oh, you're interesting, fantastic, let's go.
Yes, they take it, they cradle it, they help you, grow as a leader.
Yeah.
And, I'm hoping other companies follow suit and do the same.
Yeah, perfect. So there's been a couple of really difficult questions on the stream. Thank you for those. One of them, I'll break this into two parts, is what if there are policies or practices within the company that don't encourage crunch per se, but often lead to crunch? For example, delivery days and like back planning, essentially. How do you deal with that? So when there are sort of unintended consequences going around and you think you can see through them as an employee, what do you do?
As an employee, then, and not as a lead?
Not as a lead, as an employee.
Oh, it is. So when I've been able to do the most work on like crunch at a company has always been a leadership position, because as leads, we have this, we are working as role models, as an example. And if an employee wants to kind of say like, hey, I'm not going to crunch as an example, it's because it's not coming from above, it can be viewed badly. Unfortunately, like that's how it is. So I would say try to get the leads to be on your side, like send them this presentation, like whatever you can, and convince them, because once they start kind of becoming role models themselves, either by scoping correctly and everything else that I said, and also by not doing it themselves, is when they start setting an example and the rest of the company can kind of start doing it also. So I would say try to get the leads on your side. I don't know of a better way to do it as a non-lead, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I guess something that I would maybe add to that is usually people are convinced by data, hard data.
Yes.
So presentations are one thing, and you'd hope that would fix everything, but then sometimes maybe you already had quotes about increased productivity, decreased productivity. It's like a really hard argument. So it's not an opinion, it's a fact. Maybe let's try to be faster. How about?
Yeah, we're seeing it. I'm seeing it a lot now because senior talent is hard to come by, as I said. And now whenever studios are trying to hire senior talent like me, one of the things they say is like, oh, by the way, we don't crunch. So this is now a selling feature for leads.
Yeah.
So like, I think it's because the leads, the seniors, anyone who's been in this industry for quite a while, they're just getting tired of this. They have a family now.
Yeah.
And they're just not putting up with it anymore. So it is kind of changing because the industry is getting older. They're getting smarter, wiser. They're getting more tired. And so if there's a young team, they definitely have that burn, that fire and inexperience that they might accidentally get into this crunch culture. And it needs to just be nipped in the bud. Someone needs to tell them, hey, you're going to burn yourself out. Don't do it.
Yeah, I hear you. Second part of the same question, maybe even more difficult, is how do you start to drive change to these things within a company if you're not in a leadership role, i.e., how do you manage upwards? Should you?
The thing, like, that's a problem that I never managed to solve before I became a lead. So I wish I could just answer it. But the thing is, the leads are the ones with the keys. So again, like, if it is in your capacity to be able to change their opinion, there might be other solutions, but I just don't know of them. So I would say try to get the leads on your side. Try to make them realize, hey, whatever you do has a trickle-down effect. Whatever I do is a leaf note, and it will just not be viewed very well.
You'd hope that, of course, there are many different contexts, and you never know who's asking and what the company is like. But you'd hope that there's some common goals that you're all working towards, and that everybody wants to be more effective reaching those goals, do the best decisions they can with the data that they have, i.e. maybe they don't have all the data, maybe they didn't know about the trickle-down effects. You do. So, as you say, maybe there's a way to collaborate rather than antagonize.
That's a very good thing also, because sometimes people just do it because out of ignorance, they don't know any better. They think it's gonna, they see people work overtime and it produces more work, but then they don't see the scaffolding, like basically shaking apart on the bottom that is going to cause more work.
Yeah, exactly. Now, one fun question there. You mentioned in the presentation that as a lead, you shouldn't freak people out.
Yes.
How do you not freak people out? Do you freak people out?
I freaked people out. I have, and I'm so sorry. Oh God. So just saying, hey, can you let's go talk in the meeting room about this, or about something, like, hey, can you come talk to me? And I didn't even realize until they sat down, and they were just like, I was just like, what's wrong? They're just like, well, what is this about? I'm just like, oh, like, I just want to run this by you, this new like design or something.
I
Like,
really like your shirt.
yeah, like, just want to compliment you on your shirt. And they're like, oh, I thought this was something bad. And I'm like, man, this is like, I heard a good example. Like, it's like talking to the police. Like, the police usually doesn't say, like, I want to talk to you a little bit. It's like, oh, it's probably something good, you know? So give them a heads up. Hey, let's talk about X, Y, Z. Let's go, you know, now.
Yeah.
So that's already a good thing. But of course, on the other side, well, what if it's about firing someone? What if there's like an idea happening or something like that?
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you're already saying, well, hey, company-wide meeting with a 1-day notice, yada, yada, people are already going to make up their mind, like, oh, it might be something bad.
Yeah.
So you can just say, it's like, hey, it has to do with the future of our working.
Yeah.
Something like that. Just a little bit of
Right.
it.
The secrecy doesn't help.
It does not help.
It's
People-
laziness. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
People will think of the worst thing. So even if you were to say like, hey, let's talk about something and it has to do with whether we're continuing or not as a company. I understand, like, especially for public companies, they might not be able to like say it in advance before the meeting, but there is a way of giving a heads up at least about the general notion of what's going to be discussed.
Yeah, exactly. And here's another one from the audience. It's a bit open-ended, but would you have any tips for people at the start of their game industry career who are trying to land their first job or jobs? I would also imagine kind of if you're shifting careers within the industry.
Yeah.
What's your like cutting edge hot take on what should you be doing today?
The thing is, like, so this was the leadership edition of my From Zero to Lead, and I have like a student edition or getting into it, and that's like a whole another hour. And I want to do that some other day. Maybe like if it don't have a leadership summit, but a student summit or something. I'll do part 2 of my From Zero to Lead. But for me, I'll be just super anecdotal right now. As a programmer, when I'm trying to hire someone and they are straight from school, I want to know if they just can do it, because there's a little bit of this threshold to whether you can learn, whether you can work in a team. And I've heard some other leads say that they disagree with this, but this is my opinion, and I stand by it. I will disagree with the ones who disagree with me. And that is, if you have a portfolio, even if it means game jam games, student projects, all of these look amazing. So this is for students, not necessarily people switching industries. For the students, if I'm trying to hire someone, for example, at Housemark, when I was working there and we were hiring students, if I have the option between someone who says, I've done school for a lot of time and I've done some Unity work and something like that, and now I have to ask myself, are they going to be able to pick up Unreal? Are they going to be able to work in a team? You know, are they going to be able to work on the tight deadline? But if they say, hey, this is my student project, or even like, hey, I've made these game jam games, and I can try them out, and maybe even see the source code, because like this is their game after all. Then it's like, oh wow, I know you can, find a team. I know you can work in a team, work with others, work under pressure, self-scope, and ship a game with a beginning and end in a limited amount of time. You can't do a game jam without crunching, by the way. 8 hours a day, it's still fine. Don't do a crunch during game jam. And for me, seeing those things have usually been the deciding factor for me, for juniors that otherwise don't have any other experience. This answers all the questions for me. So that's, if you're trying to get hired by me specifically, that's how you would do it.
There you go. All right, one last one. So you mentioned that after becoming a lead, the way your words are being perceived changes. You have more weight, and you kind of have to be mindful of the effect you're having. So on that note, do you get drunk with your employees or people you're leading?
That's a really good question. I don't get drunk, period, anymore. I think it's a blessing in disguise. I've partied enough for a lifetime before I was a lead. Nowadays, I think a lot of this harassment cases and all these bad things happening in conferences, yada yada, they always use the excuse of alcohol.
Right.
Oh, I was drunk. So I think if you are one of those persons of importance, that you have clout, an influencer, and I was saying like you don't have the luxury of things anymore, I would say you don't have the luxury of getting shit-faced amongst other people that aren't of the same statue. Like,
you're right.
There's this power dynamics that are playing now. Like there are people coming into the industry. There's like different, genders that it matters now how you communicate with them.
Yeah.
And being drunk, it's like, it limits inhibition, And but I see it mostly used as an excuse. So even nowadays, I'm thinking for my future events where I'm going to be like doing conferences or meetups, I'm going to be focusing more on non-alcoholic drinks because I've just seen it used as too much of an excuse.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, excessive amount of alcohol do not belong at industry gatherings.
Yeah, and I guess especially this sort of leader-employee dynamic itself. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yes.
also that, like, I can understand people want it because it's fun, you know. Oh, I want to get it. For a small team, yeah, it's, you know,
Have a laugh.
yeah, have a laugh, have fun. But you know the saying, usually nothing good happens after 12 o'clock. Usually nothing good happens after the 10th beer either. So I would say if you're in a lead capacity, tone down your drinking a bit. There is social drinking, which is totally acceptable, totally fine. Excessive drinking is not.
Yeah, yeah. Well, on that hot take, I think it's time for us to end and also let people to, go for lunches and join the Mentorship Cafe. But I thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us today.
Thank you for having me over.
Yeah, thanks for being here physically, and we'll catch you again.
Thanks.
Cheers.